having a car that is lowered to look good and perform better, is it worth it for daily driving? Is it worth having a car that might scrape over every speed bump? Is it worth it having a car that's going to scrape when you back out of your driveway in the morning? So for this video, I'm going to be using my 2008 Saab 9.3 Turbo X that is on map-tuned coilovers, and as you can see, excuse the terrible fitment, this car needs spacers. This car sits really low. Better example would be in the front here. Usually these cars have about 3 fingers worth of clearance, but this car you can fit just about 1 finger in at an angle like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and strap up the GoPros. I don't do many videos while driving, so I'm gonna get back to doing that again, and we'll talk when I get back on the road. One more thing that I do want to say before I get into this video is that while my car is lowered, it obviously sits much lower than the 9.5 right here on stock ride height. It's not a stanced car. It's not one of these show cars that has half an inch of clearance. So I'm not trying to say that I have the lowest car in the history of existence and daily driving and blah 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 whatever. So just keep that in mind, that of course while my car is lowered, it's not really that low when you compare it to a lot of modified cars in today's world. So I want to start off by talking about backing out of the driveway. Now I'll show a close-up of my Turbo X lip, which is just a little, almost like front splitter that comes with the car from factory. It's just a little plastic piece. That has gotten pretty messed up because of how low this car is. Now, of course, this is a part that is easily replaceable. It takes 5 minutes to replace, isn't very expensive. They're meant to kind of get beat up. You know, Saab knew that they would get beat up when they made this car, regardless if it was low or not. So when I back out of here, because of there's a little like slope kind of like that going from the sidewalk and driveway to the actual road, I have to go at a specific angle or else I scrape when I back out. So let's see if I can hit that angle right here. Moment of truth. Ooh, I have the windows down. Hopefully you guys could hear that. Just a very subtle scrape, but usually I'm pretty good about getting it. So anyways, we're off. So these coilovers themselves are map-tuned coilovers, like I said, and these, of course, being coilovers, you can adjust the height, but with these you can also adjust the stiffness. So with this car being this low, they kind of need to be set at a fairly stiff setting. The car doesn't ride very harshly. Now, I'm not exactly sure how close to stiff or soft, how close these really are on that scale where they're set right now, but for where they are, they ride very well, and the car doesn't bounce up and down to the point where I'm banging the bottom of my car off of certain things or I'm scraping over everything. Really, for how low this car is, it's very easy to drive on a daily basis. And people have asked me, are you going to make or raise it up a little bit so that way it doesn't, you know, it doesn't scrape over certain things, or you don't have to worry about it scraping? And the answer to that question is no. 1, because I'm lazy and I don't want to do that work. And 2, because I know the second I raise it up, even if it's half an inch, it's gonna make the car look like a monster truck to me. When I look at a stock Turbo X or a stock 9.3 now, I look at it and I say, geez, that thing looks like a monster truck. Of course, it's not a monster truck. It's not really high off the ground or anything, but when I look at this thing every day and I see how low it is and how good it looks at sitting at this height, I love it. And then when I look at something else, it just looks like it's too high off the ground. So I'm cruising here, just doing, you know, 45, 50 miles an hour like I would on a normal surface street, and it's so smooth. Now, it's not as smooth as the stock suspension from these cars. Obviously, this car was meant to ride very smooth. It was more on the luxury side of things than the sporty side of things. But it does ride very nice. It's not like I'm doing this every time I go over a road that isn't 100% smooth. So Arizona, where I live, Phoenix, actually has pretty good roads. So the roads here, we don't have many potholes because we don't get snow or anything like that. But the roads here are, for the most part, very well maintained. So if you are watching this video and you're considering lowering your car, and you live in an area back east where it snows and you guys have pretty bad roads, or somewhere like Michigan I've heard has terrible roads, then maybe consider otherwise, because I can't give you honest feedback on something like that, obviously. But in Arizona, where the roads are pretty good, or probably a place like California, or somewhere where it doesn't snow or you don't have to deal with potholes everywhere, you shouldn't have a problem at all. Now granted, we do still have potholes here, but they aren't really severe or to the point where I'd be worried about going into one and destroying a wheel or ruining the underside of my car. So this car doesn't have a whole lot of ground clearance. Now outside of the front lip getting messed up, really the only other place that I've seen any sort of damage or wear from this car being so low, oddly enough, is on the mid pipe of the exhaust. So I had this car at an exhaust shop a few weeks ago just to have a bracket modified for the downpipe. When I did that needed to go back onto the car. I needed to have it bend a certain way, and I couldn't do that at home with the tools that we had. So I took it there, and when I was looking at the car underneath, the mid pipe, which sits right underneath the car, it hangs down a little bit more than the frame or anything else would. There were a couple scrapes on it, and of course nothing significant, nothing of worry, but I just kind of thought it was funny. So now the part that I really want to talk about, and the part that you guys probably want to hear about, is the performance side. So I've talked about the daily driving side. Really, it isn't a big deal. You just got to go slow over speed bumps. Right? All speed bumps I go over sideways. You'll see people with low cars do that. Kind of go over at like a 45-degree angle. I do also want to mention, before we get into the performance part of this video, that these coilovers are at the lowest setting that they can possibly be at. Most people don't set them at a setting this low for practical reasons. So I'm going to try and find some roads that are a bit curvy here. And I just want to say, based off of what I've experienced so far with owning this car in 3 or 4 months, that it handles these coilovers, or these corners, very well. Oh, those were some fat backfires right there. Alright, so this car hugs turns so well, and with the cross-wheel drive system, it just makes that so much better, because that system can send pretty much all your torque to a single rear wheel and do all these crazy things with distributing the power. So I would say that, yeah, this car hugs the ground, and with the cross-wheel drive, it handles incredibly well for how big this car is and how much it weighs. It weighs something like 3,700 pounds. It handles so well for that. Now, if it were a front-wheel drive car, I would probably change my mind a bit on that, because, you know, it wouldn't have power at all 4 wheels. But it still handles very well, and it hugs the ground so well. When I'm taking turns fast, I don't bounce up and down and have to worry about the car spinning out, or the car, there's the body roll. The body roll is almost zero. With that being said, guys, I think I've said just about all I want to say about these coilovers. So is driving with a lowered car worth it? I would say yes. Honestly, I've gotten used to it. I think you get used to it pretty quickly, understanding that, hey, you gotta go slow when you back out your driveway. You gotta go sideways over certain speed bumps. You can't be mobbing through neighborhoods that have speed bumps. You can't be, you gotta be careful in certain areas where the terrain or the road might not be super smooth or might have speed bumps or stuff like that. So if anything, I think having a lowered car kind of teaches you to be a better driver. It teaches you to be more precautionary, I guess. So it teaches you to be a better driver. So if you're pitching it to yourself and trying to figure out, is it worth that money? Yes, it teaches you to be a smarter and better driver. I figure I'll also throw this in at the end here. For these Saabs, I figure some of you might be wondering this, there are a few different options for coilovers. Not as many as if you were buying coilovers for, whatever, your Honda Civic. But Maptune is probably one of the big ones out there. I think Kony has some, they have at least some shocks and springs. You also have D2, I know is another big popular option. I think they might be a little cheaper than MapTune. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a big thumbs up. And I'll see y'all next time.